How do you recognize good writing? This is something that I think about quite often because the ability to recognize good writing allows me to determine whether what I've written is good writing or not. And I've got one idea that I think is very helpful in recognizing, or maybe we could say not recognizing, good writing. Welcome to How to Write Good. I am your host, Daniel Poppie. You can find out more about me at danielpoppie.com. If it is your first time here, How to Write Good is a writing podcast that seeks to find principles and advice that can be applied across a broad range of writing situations. If you've been here before, don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button below, and share. So how do you recognize good writing? That is actually a very important question if you want to learn how to write better. You can certainly go to the internet and you can find tons of bits of information about what good writing is and what bad writing is and what you should and should not do in writing. You can definitely do that and you will have tons of information to shift through, and some of that information will be contradictory in nature. Some will contradict other information, and when you really think about some of that information, you will find that it actually doesn't make sense when you think about it in relation to writing. And you will find much of that writing doesn't necessarily talk about writing itself, but either talks about creativity or art in a wider context, or even life itself. And yes, when you start that search for writing advice, you will find people who give advice about life instead of writing. And it is your job to determine whether they have a bit of truth in there related to the writing, or if they needed that bit of information to become a better writer, if that makes sense. So you can have information about life itself that will push you forward into better writing. And then there is information about writing itself that deals directly with the writing. If I say you should be open to meeting new people and understanding how they work so that you can better relate to them, it is a piece of life advice that will actually apply to your writing as well, but it is still a piece of writing advice. And I know there are instances I've given pieces of advice that will affect your life in general, but I always try to tie that back to writing, though I probably always don't do that. But when we look at different writing advice, there is usually a reason why someone is giving that writing advice. In general, I think much of this advice has a core of truth in it. And in a lot of this writing advice, if it actually is related to writing, I think that this advice often is true, but it is true within specific circumstances. So it is not going to be true across all writing situations. And I'm not sure if you can give advice in relation to all writing situations, though I definitely do try. And another aspect or another issue with giving writing advice or saying, hey, you should do this or you should do that or you shouldn't do this, is that whether someone likes a specific piece of writing advice is subjective, and whether someone likes a specific piece of writing is subjective. Stephen King, I've heard, hates adverbs. He doesn't write with adverbs. He dismisses them. He thinks they are bad writing. And then there are other people who probably like adverbs very much. So there are two people, and one has a host of writing knowledge. The other might as well have a host of writing knowledge. And one person is saying that they don't like adverbs and the other isn't. And it is a feature of language. Adverbs are a feature of language. So should we be able to use something that is evidently a feature of language? And I would err on the side of saying yes. Now, I make a lot of statements about writing, and then I hope that I've made statements that do not change based on the circumstances like I was talking about before. One of my biggest pieces of writing advice is to write for clarity. Another way of saying that is to try to be as clear as possible when you write. Another way of saying that is to try to make people understand your ideas as you understand them. Because I think that if you shoot for clarity, even though you're going to fail, you're going to be understood better than if you just try to be creative or if you just try to be artistic. If you shoot for clarity, you are going to connect to people better. And I always assume, or I make this assumption, and I believe it's correct, that writing is to communicate with other people. But if I were to give you another piece of writing advice, I would say you should try to make your writing disappear. So what does it mean to make your writing disappear? Well, I've talked about this idea of writing being the reader thinking your thoughts after you. And I say it that way, and I've constructed it in that way for a very specific reason, right? Think about your own thoughts. Think about how you go through your day. How often do you actually focus and make your thoughts go in a specific direction? Though it sounds odd, we don't actually think about how we are thinking. Thinking just flows from us in the same way talking flows from us. Even people who do not have a very high intelligence level are able to talk on and on and on, depending on who they are. There's actually a specific disability where the person has mental retardation and they actually can talk in a way that sounds as if they're very intelligent. It's a very odd thing. It's called chatterbox syndrome, if you'd like to check it out. So people don't think about things when they are talking. Usually we have talking come to our mouths as if it's instantaneous. And people do the same with thinking. We think about something, but we're not trying to force ourselves to think about that thing. Our minds are usually drifting from one thing to the other, and thinking comes very naturally to us. We don't notice our own thinking, and that's the whole point. We don't notice our own thinking. So what if you tried to make your writing so buttery that people don't even realize they are reading? And that's what I mean by making your writing disappear, right? You might be saying, well, I like to notice the writing I'm reading. Okay, that's okay. That's fine. I know people enjoy writing. I know people enjoy seeing the craft of writing. But when you are writing, when somebody is reading your work, you are trying to convey specific ideas. And if you can get to the point of making your writing disappear, you are getting to the point of getting people to think your thoughts after you in the same way you thought them before. And those people aren't going to be seeing the writing. They are going to be seeing the experiences and the ideas and the characters you are presenting. Everything else is going to disappear, and then that is going to come to the fore. And the writing is so good, if I may say that you don't need to worry about the writing anymore, and the reader doesn't need to worry about the writing anymore. Everything slips into their mind, and you may say, well, I want people to see my good writing. But I think that the author is meant to slip into the background. I think that, and I really like this idea, and I think this actually follows the personalities of many people who write. I think the author is meant to slip into the background. I think that the ideas and what you are presenting are the things that are supposed to come to the fore. Those are the things people are supposed to be focusing on. So even if you do like the craft of writing and you like being able to see the craft of writing and you think other people should be able to see that craft of writing, if you focus on this idea of both clarity and then you focus on this idea of trying to make the writing so good that people forget about it, even people who dislike your writing style, because everybody dislikes certain writing styles, but you can actually, for lack of a better word, trick people into forgetting about your writing style and just think about the ideas you are expressing. And I think that's a very good thing, because oftentimes people run into things they don't like within writing and they dismiss the ideas in the writing completely, even if those ideas are very good. So what do you think? Do you think this is a good way to approach writing? Do you think this should be a goal of writing, or do you think I'm completely off base? You should definitely tell me either way. If you enjoyed this, you're probably wondering how you can support me. Well, you can actually do two simple things. Follow the first link below to grab a copy of my book, and then follow the second link and sign up for my newsletter. It's that simple. Those two things will mean the world to me and give me more time to write books and create content for you. As always, my name is Daniel Poppie, and this is How to Write Good.